Hello, welcome back. As you can see, massive box that contained a Scammell Commander with a 62 Tonne Crane Fruehauf Semi trailer, a British motor for a change, and what a motor! Fabulous piece of kit. When I first retired and I decided to build model trucks as a hobby to fill time in, I envisaged building British trucks that I used to drive. However, there are none. There are none on the market. You cannot buy them. It's as simple as that. You can buy some of the big ones remote control, but I've not got that kind of money. This came out not long ago, and it's a first run of this kit, and it's by Hobby Boss. I'm not doing an unboxing, I'm just showing you the box basically, and I was so excited to get it that I took everything out of the box and started building it. Hey ho, such is life. But it's a fabulous truck, it really is. The Commander was a heavy truck. It goes 100 tons all up when it's loaded, about 103, 105 tons when it's all loaded, when it's loaded with a tank. It carries a Challenger 2, which you may remember I have a kit of, which has been assembled, and that will go on the back of it. I've not decided what colour to paint this yet. Wrong side. There are two colour schemes. I don't know if I can get that in. Yeah, I can just about. And I don't know whether to paint it the British Army green or the desert tan colour. I'll decide. There is also a white version which was used for the UN, by the UN in places like Bosnia. So I've got three choices there. I've got no transfers, decals as they call them now, for the white one, but I'm sure that I would be able to get them from somewhere. The truck itself is a huge thing. It's got a V12 either Perkins or Rolls-Royce engine in it, depending on what they decided to put in at the time. They're all left-hand drive because they were very rarely used in this country. They were used more in Germany, and they were based in Germany. They were basically a Cold War tank transporter. Massive piece of equipment. Never drove one, would love to have driven one, would still love to drive one. You never know, may get a chance. That's me ranting about the kit, and it really is a nice kit, and a couple of sprues of PE photo etch, one sheet of transfers, decals, and where am I now? Yeah, the photo etch. Yeah, there's quite a lot of it on there. You can see it as I move it around. I've not got much space here because I'm doing it on my desk because it's raining outside. So that's about that for there. Once you start the kit, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. This kit was the cheapest I'd get it in this country was £137. Eventually I found a German model shop that was selling it for €128, and it turned out that I saved over £40, even including the postage, by buying it in Germany and having it sent over here. If anybody's interested, just ask and I shall give you the name of the shop in Germany. But the service was great. It took a little while to get here because the postage was fairly cheap. Other than that, that's it with the box. Okay, back to the fun stuff. As you can see, I've already done quite a lot of this. As I say, I was really quite excited when this kit came on the market, and even more so when my wife very kindly paid for it for me. Most of it's gone together fairly simply. I've done the Hobby Boss and Trumpeter kits before, as you may know, and they go together fairly well, and there are very, very few mistakes on them. This kit is the exception to the rule. If you're expecting it to go together like any other Hobby Boss kit, then I'm afraid you might be disappointed. And there's just a few bits. This area here, section 1, dead easy, all goes together really easily. As you may know, I've been wiring the trucks so that the lights work on them, the lights and the beacons and such work on them. So this beam and this beam, C18 and K29, I've cut them out with a little channel. You can just about see it on there, where the wires go through in there, and the same on this one. Do that on both sides. I've done that on both sides so that I can run wires down both sides of it. The rest of that was really quite easy. You need to look carefully at the instructions. I put this part in upside down. Why I put it in upside down, I don't know. Some kind of brain fart. But I had the devil's own job getting it back out again, turning it over the right to the correct direction. Rest of that, dead easy. Then onto section 2. Again, really easy stuff. Just join it all together. Put the springs onto the top. These, I think, go to an oil filter. That is an oil filter at the back, and these pipes come out of the sump, the sump here, and go forward to the oil cooler. Put all that in. As I say, it's really quite easy. That you can see it all in there. It's quite easy stuff. Springs on. Then it's on to section 3. Again, really quite simple, putting the entire rear bogie together, and there was nothing that really stood out on the rear bogie. There you go. All goes together really quite easily. There are two little bits that will point out to you though. You can see them here, they're in white, and I've made those out of a piece of white styrene on both sides. The kit supplies them at this end, but nothing for this end. I've looked at many videos of the real truck and they do exist, but not on this, not in this kit, nothing at all. So they've been put in. I've made them, cut them. They're fiddling around with a sharp knife, and you've got them. It's simple as that. I'll show you on the next page. Where oh no, I won't. We'll get to it in a minute or two. So that's all step 3 put together. No problem at all, except for that piece that's missing. Then you get to step 4. And these toolboxes that go over the top of a section of air tanks. It says here make 12. Well, there are only 3 boxes. If they were talking about making 12 of these, again there are only 8 of them, so don't get yourself confused. You don't make 12, you only make you actually make 3 and you get 1 over. These pieces here, H49 and 64, are ever so fragile. They really are fragile, which is why I've marked them in amber. I'm not going to put them on until it's all fitted together on the truck. And that indeed is this section here, and you get 3 toolboxes. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Those little pieces that I've just mentioned are the tie downs. They go into little hooks here and onto little bars there, hook over the top and onto there, but they are very, very fragile. And as I say, you get one spare one. I'll think of something to do with it. So that's that. The underneath of that again really goes together quite easily. But again, there's a well, I'll get but further down the line. I'll show you the problem with this as well. There is a problem with it, and it's shaped like that because of the shape of the chassis. If you look at the chassis, it has a bit of a swan neck in it. So that's that bit. Then we're moving on to section 5. Section 5 itself is no real problem. It's building the winch, and it's all really quite straightforward. However, you don't get any kind of cable with it at all. So as I've done in the past, I've used picture wire, 1mm picture wire for the cable on the drum, and it goes, this is according to the real photographs that I've seen on the internet and from the military, it comes off underneath, it goes across that pulley, comes out through these two rollers here. It then, the reason there's so much of it, it then goes all the way along the chassis and goes between those two rollers, those two pulley wheels, then through those rollers, through the top roller anyway, and then doubles back on itself, and where it's normally hooked on here. And I'm guessing that's so that they don't have to unwind loads and loads of cable every time they come to pick something up. There's also another pulley on it. I don't know if my camera will show that properly. And it's this one here, with the copper wire on it, which is 3 strands of 0.1mm wire, copper wire. I've twisted them together to give it a cable effect, and then on the end I've created a loop so it sticks onto there, and it sticks onto that pulley nicely. And what this was used for, there's a handle that goes in there, and what they would do is, this is a manual cable drum. They would pull the cable out on this one all the way to the tank, and they would thread this thin cable through all the pulleys. Then they would wind it back in. They would hook it to the end of this cable, the big cable. Then they would wind it back in, and in effect that would pull the big cable, which would be really very heavy on a real winch. Pull that one through all the pulleys and pulley wheels and rollers. Then of course attach it to whatever they're pulling onto the trailer and drag it in. These two wheels here, I can't find them on the real trucks. It's as simple as that. They don't exist on a real truck. Maybe somebody can correct me on there and tell me what they're for, but I suspect that what they're for is that you could pull that cable over the top through those two pulley wheels and then over the top here, and you could get a different pull angle from the top like that. That's a guess. Other than that, I really don't know. But that's most of the winch setup done. There's a hydraulic tank that goes on the side. I can't find that way around. It goes on the side like that, and when it's on, I will put all the levers, the control levers, which don't come with the kit. It's quite disappointing that, but there's 4 or 5 different control levers here, and I will also put the hydraulic pipes in that go from here to the hydraulic winch on this side. The next piece is the exhaust system. Now I've watched a couple of videos of other people putting this exhaust system together, and they're just as frustrated with it as I am. It looks as though it would go together really simply, and that's a real myth. It will not. The two silencers, two mufflers, go together. That in itself is really quite simple, and the two end pipes coming out there, tail pipes if you like. You've then got a couple of pieces of PE that go in there and two more that go along here. You then have a large piece of PE, yeah, which you've got to bend in many ways, in many different directions, and that then fits on the back there, and it really, once you've got it bent correctly, it fits on there really very well. So far so good. There are also, on the instructions, two pieces of PE which fold in a peculiar way. So I managed to fold them as they should be, and they're curved like that, like a corset curve if you like. They are supposed to go, sorry, I'll turn it around this way, through the two silencers and then turn over and fill that gap nicely. The reality is, if anybody ever manages to get them in, let me know. I'm sure the other people that have struggled with it would love to know as well. It's an absolute nightmare, and I did what it would seem that most people have done with them, was cob them out the door and start again. And all I've done is put two pieces of plastic in there, cut two pieces of plastic to shape and put those in there. The reason they're there is, oops, no, these brackets, these are a real work of art. I'm not going to put them together because they really are difficult to put together. They sit on there like that. Okay, now I've got it just about right now, and in turn they sit, those two brackets sit on the side of the winch mechanism there, the winch setup. And what I'm going to do with that is, when I've got it all painted, then I will glue these two brackets onto the winch and then glue the silencers, the mufflers, onto the brackets rather than the way it suggests on the instructions. I think that's the only way you're going to get them to the correct place. Obviously they need to be painted before these two pieces of PE are put on, otherwise you just won't be able to paint them properly. And the two pieces of PE that go here and here, which I haven't cut off the board yet, off the sprue yet, are really very see-through, so you would see that it's not been painted properly. So all of that needs painting properly and rusting, and from what I can see on most of the real trucks, at the bottom here they start at a green, and that fades as it goes up higher to a rust, and at the top here it's really quite rusty. So it's a graduated rust all the way down there. Good luck with that when you come to do them. They're a nightmare. The truck seems to be built on sub-assemblies. So that's those two. Section 5, and it's two completely separate sub-assemblies, and they've just put a line down through it. But most of it, as I say, apart from those exhaust pipes, goes together really easily. Then you've got the wheels. The wheels go together really quite nicely, and you've 6 wheels, simple as that. And Americans, you might call it 10 wheels, because they count tyres, not wheels, whereas in the UK we count wheels, not tyres. So we call it a 6-wheeler, they call it a 10-wheeler. Simple stuff, put together. Again, sadly, as with quite a few of these hobby bus kits, you can see the shape of the spline to go into the axle there, and the wheels won't turn. Hey ho. Would be a nice touch if it did. Now the bumper assembly Again, really quite simple, nothing much to go in it. The amber marks I've put on there are for the glass. I never put the glass in until after I finished painting. And the bumper assembly there, really quite simple. You can see it's all put together. I've glued it on, but you can see clearly that there are no lights in it. That's because the lights are here. There are two kinds of light. There's a headlight goes in the bumper itself, which is, he said with hope in his heart, which is there and goes in there, and there's a spotlight that hangs down underneath as so. Now, because I want to light this thing up, I spent some time putting the lights together again, I'll just rig up some electrics. Okay, so these lights now work, now that I've rigged up some electricity, as you can see, and that works on all four of them. You can see that has a light on one side. I'm not going to rig them all up yet because all the wires have been safely tucked away for the time being. So all the lights on it work, and these lights, I needed something really, really tiny. So what I've done is you can buy little tiny lights off Amazon, and the battery operated little button batteries that you put in them, and then you stuff the whole lot into a jar, and it makes the jar look fancy when you turn the lights on. So I've bought a couple of those and dismantled them. Make sure you paint I don't know if you can see that, this one is actually red to show that it's a live wire, because it comes with silver wires. And then grind the light down to its absolute minimum, and then I pushed them in, drilled a little hole in the back of I don't know if that'll focus on that, might do. No, it's not doing, it's not playing, is it? Okay, so drilled a little hole in the back and then put the bulb in. What I've done then is mix super glue with some corn flour and smeared it over the top, and that has done two things. It's sealed it, and it's made it so that you can't really tell that wire goes into there, and it really is tiny work. I've also painted the inside of the light white and the bezel around the front black, so it looks like that's what it would look like in real life. Any questions about that, don't hesitate, drop me a line and I'll answer your questions gladly. So that's the lights for the front bumper bar. Fiddly, but I think it's worth it. Moving swiftly on, he said. That gives us steps 6, 7 and 8. Then we go on to section 9, and again fairly easy. It's got all these transmissions and transfer boxes, simple enough to put together. There's no real problem with it at all, no drama with them at all. I would make sure that you put all the prop shafts in before you glue it together, because you'll have the devil's own job if you don't. I'm not putting the rear bogie on yet, because obviously that needs painting, and it's got to be painted before it goes on, otherwise you'll lose all the detail. The front axle, I want to stage it so that the wheels are turned. I'm going to put it on a diorama when it's finished. The kit, however, refuses to let you pose it at an angle, so you've got to be a bit careful and work out what angle you're going to put it at, and then glue it all together. Then you will come to a problem, and the problem is that once the front axle's on, Once your front axle's on, like it is there now, the way the kit's configured, these two rams in real life would hydraulic rams for power steering. One would push in as the other one pulled back. The kit hasn't allowed you to do that. It's simply one piece that's moulded as one piece. I did think about cutting this and making it so that it would move, and then I thought that's going to be a massive amount of work, so I didn't do it. What I did was I cut, these are the two tie rods that tie the steering, it's difficult to show you, that tie the steering to the rams, the axle to the rams. And because I've set it to pose it with the wheels turn, this one is longer than this one. So yeah, where they go together, that's a nice long one, fits on there perfectly, and that's a nice short one that fits on there perfectly. And the reason they fit on there perfectly is what I've done, I mean most of you will have worked it out already, is I've cut about 4mm out of this one and glued it together, and the 4mm that I cut out, I cut that one there and then stuck the 4mm into that one so that they stayed exactly the same. Yeah. So what I cut out of that one, I stuck into that one. I've then, because I'm sure you know, when you glue bits of plastic together like that, they're not very strong at all. So what I've then done is I've used some shrink tube that you would use on the wiring, put that over the top and then shrunk it down. That's really made it quite rigid. Remember to put that on before you glue the bits together. So that's those. The shock absorbers are yet again a bit of a problem with this kit, is that the shock absorbers go here. They go onto those two pieces that are labelled C13 and C14. The kit, however, the instructions, doesn't tell you about C13 and C14. So if you forward your head and you put all that axle together, when you come to put the shock absorbers on, there's nowhere to hang them from. And the shock absorbers here go from this point here onto the axle itself, and then they hook onto part number C13. Can you see it there? C13, that one there, and C14, that one there, and they hang on to it, but they're not on the instructions. They do, however, show up on this side, on the next page, on number 10, but they're still not on the instructions, and it doesn't show you how to put them on. It doesn't tell you the part number either. So what I had to do was go through every sprue until I found two parts that looked right, try them on, and sure enough they did work. It is C13 and C14. So hopefully that saved you a little bit of work. This here, if you remember the hook that's missing on the bogie, and the hook is there simply to hold the spring on, simple as that. So it stops the spring bouncing off underneath, and you can see it clearly on the back there. You can see the hole for it on the front of the bogie, but it just ain't there, and there's no part on the sprues to put there. So if you want it on, you'll have to make them. Really quite easy. All I did was I cut two plates using this one as a template, cut two plates, glued those on, then again using this one as a template, cut two hooks and glued them all on together. Really quite easy. Again, more wheels, we've got them all, we've covered those, we've got them all together. The pulleys at the back should be simple enough, but are very, very fiddly, and they get 10 times worse when you come to put the lights on. So the pulleys there, and what I would do is I would leave them, if I was doing the kit again, I would leave those until I get the mud guards on, and then put it all together. You'll see, I'll tell you why in a second or two. Done rather a lot of this, haven't I? This stuff here, the 11, 12 and 13, doddle, nothing to it, all put together nice and easy. Even the PE goes on really nicely, and that is these two fuel tanks, and they come out really quite nice. And well, as you can see, everything's nice and neat on that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Oddly, this one has a piece of PE on the front face there, and this one doesn't. Who knows? Nice bit of PE all the way round, and it glues together really quite easily. Nice that. Then onto this one here. Again, all goes together really quite well, and that's a tool. That'll be the battery box, to be fair. Battery box, couple of air tanks on the back, couple of air tanks on the side, sorry, on the back and underneath, and really quite easy, a step there to get onto it. What else are we up to now? It goes on to show you how to put them on. And obviously we're not going to do that until we've got the bulk of it painted. Now then, this rear assembly here, when it all goes together, again I would leave it all until you put the mud wings on, mud guards on. I'll show you why in a second or two. Keep saying that, don't I? Fifth wheel frame for the fifth wheel, doddle, goes on really easily. Front mud guards go on really easily, no problem at all. I haven't put that support for the mud wing on yet. It says to put it on here, but if you do, then this winch, keep coming back to this winch, goes in and it goes behind those two mud wings there. So basically what you've got to do is you've got to prise them out just a little bit so that the two lugs on the inside of this winch here, the two lugs will pop into the locating holes. I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can just about see one there. Yeah, they're into those locating holes. So you've got all a bit of free movement in this, in these mud guards, only a little bit, but if you put that bar in, that support bar in, then you'll lose all the movement completely. As I say, the front mud guard goes on really quite easily. I've not put the exhaust pipes in because they're going to be painted a completely different colour. Then you put the mud guards on, really easy, no problem at all. The two air intakes at the front, they go there, and they fasten to the front and to the bumper at the mud guard. Really quite simple. It appears to an untrained eye that the exhaust pipes come from here, go down, around, up to the air cleaner and back out again. That wouldn't make sense, would it? In reality, what you've got is you've got a turbo here and another turbo here. And it's a V12, so you've got two turbos, and obviously one serves each bank of cylinders. So the turbo would be in there, and what that means is it draws air in from these air filters, one on each side, draws air in through the engine. The turbo then pulls it back out again and out through the exhaust pipe. So you're not going mad if you think that the exhaust pipe's going in through the air intake all the way along and then out. They've not supplied an engine with it, so why would they put the turbos in there? They've put it down as a piece of flexi hose. It would actually have a turbo in there on both, two turbos in fact, one on each side. Piece of useless information for you. And Nothing complicated at all with that. It just puts together. Not put the jerry cans together yet. Put those together at the end. The lighting bars at the back. This part here with the winch rollers and the lights, it's a bit of a mare to get together. You can't level it all up. It just won't. So if I was doing the kit again and knew what I know now, I would put all of that in one piece so that it all glued together nicely. And it's almost there, but you can see that roller isn't quite lined up with that one. There's nothing I can do about it. This one turns, but this one doesn't. It's very odd. This one, the cable would come down over that roller and go down to the floor. You may remember on the last truck I did, which was an American Oshkosh, had a step down trailer, gooseneck, swan neck trailer, and that roller there is so that this truck can pick up a swan neck trailer that lies on the floor. It can put a cable on the front of it, lift it up, and then onto the bed. In fact, that is what that roller would be for. Of course it would. That roller would go along, right along the top there, over the top of these two rollers, down to there, and it would then pick up the swan neck trailer. See, taught myself something there. The lights on it, as I've just shown you one of them working. They all work, and I'll put the glass in when it's finished. There's a lot of wires. I'm sure that if you're going to do this you'll be interested. If not, skip forward. There's 4 lights on each side. That means you've got 8 wires on each side, and I've popped them through, then bent them over very tightly and super glued them into place, and bent them very tightly there and super glued them into place, and then all the way along the chassis. Then they duck between these chassis members. They nice and neatly go over the top of those chassis members, and then, as I mentioned earlier, go in through the cross members there, and done that on both sides. When it's painted, I mean, trucks have wires all over the place, wires, air pipes, cables, all sorts running around all over the place, so it's not going to look unusual. And when it's painted, they'll very much disappear and look really quite natural. Obviously the wires have to have joints in them, simple as that. You couldn't feed enough wire through. The wires have then been reduced down from 8 to 4, and what will happen is there will be a PCB here, printed circuit board here, and all the wires will come together from the headlights, the rear lights, the indicators on the side, the indicators in the front here. I don't know if I can get one of those working for you. We'll have a look. Yeah, so you can see one of those, and when I set it all up, I'll set them up as hazard lights, and they will be all the way around the truck so that they will flash independently of the lights being on. I'm just making life more complicated for myself. Again, tiny little, you cannot buy the LEDs small enough, so you've got to buy the smallest you can get and then remanufacture them so that it will fit into that sort of space. When the glass goes on there and it's painted, there won't be any light spill from the sides, and it will be an orange lens on the front. So as I say, I'm going to put a PCB printed circuit board there, and all the wiring will come together. That's there underneath the bonnet. I was going to put the batteries in underneath the bonnet, but I've changed my mind, and I'm going to do the same as I did with the last truck that I built, and that's the Oshkosh with a bulldozer on the trailer bed. You can have a look at that if you wish to see where I put it, but the batteries will be in the trailer, underneath the trailer. And what will happen is the mains wires, main cables supplying the power to the tractor will come along through the trailer, then through the Susies, and then into this PCB, so it will power everything up from there. So that's that. I've put the radiator together. Again, it's a big piece, so you know, let's get it painted before we put it in. It's easier. I haven't put these two pieces of PE on yet because I forgot. I'll put them on later. This is all the cab and the bonnet. There's quite complex on there. Yeah. Then I don't think I've done anything on these at the back, on these last ones. No, I haven't. Oh yes, I have. Just these that I've just shown you. These two posts, one here and one there, which go on the front. And that is where I'm up to with this. Sorry, that's been quite a long video. It's there's a lot going on there. I keep snapping that piece off. I'll put it back on for about the fourth time. There are a couple one little bit that, like I say, I've smashed that off. I'm club-handed half the time. These here, you can see that they're broken. Very, very fragile. The one on the other side's broken as well. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to drill them out and put two pieces of metal in, two pieces of steel wire in there, and when it's painted up, you'll never know the difference. So that's where I'm up to. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to paint it all. Everything you see here, I'm going to paint. That's going to take me a little while. Then, when I've got it all painted, I shall assemble as much as I can, and I'll let you know where we get up to then. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the boxes below, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. Ta-ra!